Here we are. I want to take a moment to just to first appreciate you for being here today in what I believe is the beginning of a new journey for me. It really has been quite a while since I've been doing any kind of video presentations. So today, especially today, the 18th of July, marks a new beginning for me. On the one hand, because it is, I believe, the culmination of a period in my life of intense research, study, and deep inner work that is coming to an end. And my own heart is asking me now to go out into the world in a much more decisive, powerful, and clear way, powerful way. And it is no coincidence that I picked today to begin this new podcast series, Matters of the Heart. And let me tell you why. It was exactly about 10 years ago that I registered Agape, the Agape spiritual community of South Africa. That was the beginning of my spiritual journey as a minister. And funny enough, when I registered the legal paperwork for Agape, which is a Greek word for unconditional love, the registration came exactly with the date of 18th of July, today, which happens to be Nelson Mandela's birthday. Now, some of you may know the experience of Agape lasted for about 3 years, and it was really a training ground, very special training ground for me, in which I began to discover my gift in ministry, my gift in being able to support and help people along their journey of pain, change, transition, working with a lot of people whose life was stripping them away of relationships, their health, loved ones, careers. And during that time, it was in that community that I began to discover really who I was, what I was made out of. Now, after that period came to an end, I tapped into a new vision, which was the vision to begin a new kind of a ministry, one that would not tie me to the confines of a spiritual community or a church to do daily Sunday service, but instead would allow me to serve people in a much more committed way through coaching, and specifically heart intelligence coaching. And heart intelligence, because heart intelligence was what I realized ultimately every major spiritual tradition was talking about when our ancestral scribes and teachers and gurus and way showers always pointed towards the heart as that inner connecting point with the divine, with our soul's highest desires. And so I created this company, this coaching and training company called Heart and Mind Consulting, right? Which basically was dedicated to help people make the journey from their heads into their heart and begin the conversation between the mind and the heart, or the left brain and the right brain, or that logical, rational aspect of ourselves and the more intuitive, creative, emotional aspect of ourselves, so that we could become more whole, we could become more complete. And when I submitted the registration for Heart and Mind Consulting PTY here in South Africa, lo and behold, the day that was stamped on the registration was also July 18th. That was about 7 years ago. So yes, I'm coming to the end of a 7-year cycle, and I do have a strong feeling or sense that this is the beginning of another 7-year cycle. So Matters of the Heart, this podcast series, is intended to be that weekly voice, that weekly space where I can share in what appears to be a large public space, but ultimately what I believe are the most intimate aspects of myself and of this journey of bridging that that connection or unifying the heart and the mind. These two levels of intelligences that, when separate, can create a tremendous amount of chaos and disruption in our lives. But when working together in unity, at unison, can have a deeply transformational effect in all areas of your lives and restore you not only to your God-given wholeness and your purity, but also begin to guide you in the direction of relationships, careers, a whole new way of being, relating to yourself, others around you, the world, your idea, your concept of the divine, whether it's God, Jesus, Buddha, or just simply energy or the universe, whatever that may be for you. I want to invite you to consider the possibility that why the heart matters is because ultimately your heart is that central connecting or connection point with that larger aspect of ourselves. So my intention is to every week create this sacred space where we can come together, connect with our hearts, have the opportunity to discuss a specific topic, probably for about the first 30 minutes or so of our time together, and then open it up so that you also get to express your voice, ask your questions, so that I'm not here just a talking head, just expressing some ideas and bringing out all my dirty laundry and all the aspects of myself that can probably bring about great awareness, but it will keep the conversation one-sided. My intention is to create a space where I can also hear from you. So if you would like to participate in this conversation and you are someone that would like to come online, through your voice, not your video, just your voice. What you can do is you can, in the platform, the Zoom platform, you can click on a little button you should see in there somewhere that says raise my hand, raise your hand. And then what I'll do is in about 20 minutes or so, I'll pull you out so that we can hear your voice, and then I can have an interaction with you, answer any questions that you may have, and have a small conversation where I'll support you in the best way that I can. And if you're the kind of person who wishes to not expose yourself, not to participate in this way, what you can also do is just simply type in your questions in the Q&A, and then I'll do my best as well to go through them to the best of my ability. Okay. And again, the intention is to have this a participatory experience, if that feels right to you. And if not, just something that you can just kick back and listen to the topic of the day. All right, so what I want to do is I just want to open up with a brief prayer, or think of this as a heart-centering prayer. I always think that the beginning and the ending of a conversation should always begin with a sense of appreciation, and always end in the same way, in a way that we can sort of acknowledge each other, our time together, and whatever it is that we took from this experience. So I want to invite you to place a hand over your heart. And if you're driving, please do not do this. I don't want you to get into an accident because you're closing your eyes and connecting to your heart. But do just simply bring the awareness into your heart. And the invitation is for you to start breathing in and out of your heart. And do it in a way that it's a little bit slower than you normally would and deeper than you would normally breathe. The kind of breathing that you would normally experience when you are in the arms of someone that you deeply loved and that you feel loved by. And as you breathe in and out of your heart, allow yourself to receive these words from my heart to yours. Beginning by first giving thanks for the opportunity to be here today. The opportunity to come into a space where you can begin to align with what matters, what truly matters to this deeper aspect of ourselves that we call the heart. You know, that right in this energetic center, there's an intelligence, there's a love, there's a wisdom, there's a power that is immeasurable. That is not only the essence of your life and what gives you life, but it also contains a greater reason or purpose of why you're here. That it is by connecting and attuning into this intelligence that you begin to activate the vibrational frequency of life itself and begin to change deep within that what needs to be changed so that more loving, more compassionate, more powerful, more joyful version of yourself can emerge. We know that by tuning in into our hearts, we're now beginning to open up with gratitude and appreciation, our inner listening, our inner ear, our inner sight, our inner capacity to feel beyond the emotionality of life circumstances and begin to connect with what is real and true for every one of us. And that this possibility is always available to us whenever we choose to, that irrespective of our external circumstances, there is a place within our hearts that we can always come to align and connect with the love, the wisdom, the power of life itself, of all those divine beings that support us, that guide us, and a deep sense of knowing that right here, right now, all is well. That right here and right now, there is an intelligence that is taking care of our lives, expressed through our creativity, expressed through our willingness to show up for ourselves fully, expressed as our joy, expressed as our love, as compassion, as joy. I declare for each and every one of us that by being here today, aligning with this deeper aspects of ourselves, we're saying yes for more love to begin to show up and be demonstrated in all areas of our lives, in our relationships with ourselves, with those people in our life that matter the most, in our relationship with our clients, colleagues, strangers in the streets, and our relationship with nature, with animals, plants, and the divine. For it is through our heart that we establish this connection in a deeper, more intimate relationship, not only with ourselves, but with the whole. For this, I give thanks. For this, I am infinitely grateful, and I let it be. And so it is. The title of today's conversation is Why the Heart Matters. Why does the heart matter? It is matters of the heart we're talking about. When you ask yourself a question, what matters the most to me right now in my life? What is it that matters the most to me? Chances are that you're probably thinking that what matters the most is the people in your life, the people that you love and who love you, the people with whom you wish somehow you had a better relationship that was more loving, that flowed, but that for whatever reason, that doesn't seem to be a possibility at this moment, or seems to be far out of your reach. What matters is that also for many of us is that we do something that we love, that we enjoy, that somehow gives us a sense that we're making some kind of a contribution, that we matter in the world. That somehow this existence, this life is not something that is just product of a gamble or of a game or numbers. But there's a bigger reason why we're here, why we do certain things, why certain events are happening in our lives. What matters for many of us, I know for me it does, is a sense that, or the feeling that I'm part of something much bigger. That my existence is not just limited to what I do every day, day in and day out, to put food on the table or to get by. But there is a bigger reason why we're here, why I'm here, and how I feel ultimately, how you feel about not just your relationships, but different aspects of your life, whether if that's your relationship with your body, your health, um, your relationship with your career, your life purpose, whatever it is, that somehow feels right in alignment. And there's a sense of aliveness and a sense of being on track, being of good cheer, and then just being on track at some level. That's what most of us matter for. That's what matters to most of us. That's what I meant to say. That's what matters to most of us. Now, why does the heart matter? Well, first of all, because the heart is the beginning and the end. Human life, as we know it, surely begins in the human fetus the moment that the heart begins to beat. Only that's what our scientists tell us, but that's really what quantum biologists tell us, that it is the moment when the heart begins to beat, where somehow the human body and this little heart that is the very first organ that begins to develop in the human fetus, it is in that moment that the electromagnetic forces begin to operate fully in that baby and begin to draw all the resources that will begin to slowly, day in and day out, begin to multiply all the cells and begin to create a sense of rhythm, flow, that through the power of creativity will begin to create what we normally call a baby. So life really begins there. Begins by the combination of two hearts that have come together for the purpose of creating a third heart that begins to beat again on approximately day 21st. And that will continue. The little heartbeat that begins there and then, that nurtures itself before it nurtures any other organ as the little fetus is forming, will continue to beat day in and day out throughout your life, approximately 100,000 times a day, sustaining you, holding you, beating for you, giving you life, creating the magnetic field around you that will hold all the atoms together until you expire, until you leave this world. Think of the heart as it is the first organ in and it is the last one out. It is the spark of life when the soul awakens or fully enters into that newborn child or new conceived child, rather. And it is the last one to leave. Is the one that symbolizes that the energy that powers your life has left, whatever you choose to call that energy. So the heart matters because it is the beginning and the end. Your heart also matters, number two, because it is what determines your vibe. You know, there's all this talk about vibration and frequency, and we all know that every object in the world exudes an energy, a vibration. And in the human body, it is your heart that generates that largest frequency, that largest vibrational field, if you may, made out of electromagnetic energy. Your heart is, compared to the electromagnetism of your brain, at least 5,000 to 6,000 times more powerful. It contains not only an extensive net of nerves and neural cells that are very similar to the cells in the brain, but it also generates an electromagnetic field that determines not only how you feel at any given time, and the emotions, but also the kind of thoughts that you have. The higher the frequency, the better feeling the emotion is. The lower the frequency, the more dragging, slow the emotion is. So the vibe then, it's the expression of the quality of the vibration, of the heartbeat, of the energy that it's being radiated out from your heart. The Institute of Heart Math has actually been able to track this electromagnetic field in a laboratory, and they know that this field is able to expand at least 5 to 10 meters around you, transcending oftentimes time and space. Is what allows you, through this field, which, as you know, energy is ultimately information. It allows you to communicate through your emotions with people around you, and also people who are far away from you. Have you ever, for example, been thinking about a person and then suddenly you find that at the exact same moment that you're thinking about them, that person calls you, or you pick up the phone at exactly the same time? Well, that is the power of your heart, to begin to feel, or to connect with this field and be able to feel the person's energy already entered into your field, and then the unconscious and conscious mind beginning to formulate a picture, a mental picture, or a thought about this person. This is the energy, this is the power of your heart, which is why your heart matters. Now, the heart also matters because this vibe that is exuded or generated within the heart also will have a direct impact on the quality of your life. The higher the vibration, the better the higher the quality of your mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual health. The lower the vibration or the vibe, the lower the quality of your physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional health. Plain and simply, when you are feeling down and out and sad, or you're in a state of shame, shame is that energy level or that emotion that basically says, I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. What's wrong with me? I did something to lose somebody's love, or I am inadequate. In essence, I am not okay. Whenever you're activated, or you're experiencing that vibration, which is expressed as an emotion, oftentimes you'll have a tendency to have patterns of thoughts and beliefs that match them. Same thing happens when you're feeling really good, in space of joy. If you've ever been in love, you know exactly the feeling, or what it feels like to be in that state of joy and excitement, and life is good, and then money's flowing. Well, why? Because the high vibrational state allows for you to create the attractor field, if you may, the vibrational field that allows all these thoughts, those beliefs, to surface. And so, when you are feeling good about yourself, you do things that normally feel good or life enhancing. When you're not feeling good about yourself, that's when normally you begin to engage in those activities, those habits, those addictions, those escape mechanisms that then literally go against you. Okay, that's when you overeat, or start watching too much television, or start spending a long time on social media, or gossiping, or engage in any of those kind of activities that ultimately are mechanisms to want to escape the discomfort of these feelings, these emotions. So this vibrational field that is created at the level of the heart will then have a direct impact on the quality of your life. So you could say that your vibe determines the quality of your life. The fourth reason why your heart matters is because your heart holds the soul. The ancient Taoists believe that your heart center, not necessarily just the actual physical heart, but that space within the middle of your chest that includes the heart. Some people refer to this as the lower heart, the middle heart, and the higher heart, or simply the middle dantian. This space within you house the soul, and they call this the space in the middle of your chest. They call that the lingong in Chinese, which means heaven's temple. And they believe and taught that at the time of conception, at the time right before the heart began to beat in the little infant, a small soul would leave the heavens, and the soul would leave the heavens and would lodge itself there in the lingam, in the temple of the soul. And that this soul would carry with it all the information pertaining to this individual's life journey, lessons that were here to be learned, experiences that were here to be had, and ultimately the main reason or purpose of why this individual was coming into this experience, into this field that we call our earth, our planet, our home, or just simply the experience of being human. They call this little soul that left the heavens at the time of conception, they called it the Tianming, which means heaven's order. So within your heart, the ancient Chinese believed there is your soul, and not only your soul, but also your soul's purpose. So you could then say that your heart is literally that communication center that allows you to access a higher intelligence system that bypasses everything you've ever seen, heard, or experienced before through the power of your rational mind. And it is ultimately what allows you to see beyond the illusion of many of your situations in life, to connect with what is ultimately true and real about a person, a situation, a relationship, or even a problem that you believe you may have. That's one of the things that happened to me when I moved to South Africa 11 years ago. I went through experience of losing my mother, my job. I also was mugged, and my money, my credit card, my passport were taken from me. And a lot of the things that I held very dear and close to me that I thought really mattered, they certainly did, cracked my heart wide open. And in the middle of all that pain, in the middle of all that grief that I was experiencing, I began to start connecting with this deeper aspect of myself that was basically letting me know there is another life waiting for you. Who you thought you were up until now, it's a very limited version of yourself. Almost like a character. You know, I come from the background of an actor. I used to be an actor doing telenovelas and working in Hollywood and in Latin America. And when all you do is play one character, deep down, the actor feels empty because it knows I am much more capable than this. So oftentimes, many of these experiences happen within us to liberate us from these personalities, these prisons that we have created for ourselves, this false notion of who we think we are. Many of them coming from not even from ourselves. We became what our parents thought or what we wanted them to be proud of, but it wasn't really what it was deeply fulfilling to our hearts, to our souls. And then the last reason why the heart matters. And this has been one of the deepest realizations I've had, especially over this past year of intense emotional wounding. No, sorry, not intense emotional wounding, of intense emotional healing of my own childhood wounds. This fifth reason, is that ultimately your biggest, most important battles in life will be fought and will be won inside your heart. I'm going to say this again because this is key to the conversation that lays ahead of us week after week. The most important battles that you will ever fight will be fought and will be won inside your heart. What do I mean by this? What I mean is that oftentimes I'll speak about myself. I've had the tendency for a great part of my life to move through life thinking or believing that someone or something out there was doing something to me. A person was behaving in a way that was not acceptable or agreeable to me. They were not doing what I wanted them to do. They were not being who I wanted them to be. And so I had all this anger. Why cannot they not treat me with love? Why can they not treat me with respect? Why can they not return the love that I give? Does this sound familiar? And so as a result, I began to accumulate a lot of anger and began to repress a lot of these discontent. So ultimately, where did that anger live? Right? It lived inside of me. It began to literally create a wall around my heart. And so I try to get the other people to change. And so my happiness then began to depend on whether somebody actually said yes to me and started behaving the way that was acceptable and agreeable to me. But the truth is that whenever I tried to do that, it became not only emotionally taxing, wearing me out, but it also, the people outside felt also resentful or ashamed. I was literally shaming somebody into doing what I wanted them to do. They were not really doing it out of free will and choice. And so I learned that my job was one of beginning to embrace the anger inside my heart, beginning to come to terms with those aspects of myself that were expecting, that were literally expecting something in return, that was giving, expecting something back. And I began to release this anger, embrace the anger inside of me. And I began to see whatever it was that I was giving as a gift. I began to literally let go of all this sense of expectations, false notions of how people should be and should behave, and begin to love people where they are by loving myself, my anger, and all these emotions that lived inside. I can't think of a better story to illustrate this than what today here in South Africa is all about. We're celebrating the 100th anniversary of Nelson Mandela's birthday. Now, if you know about Madiba's life, he was a revolutionary leader who dedicated his life to fighting oppression, inequality in an apartheid system that was telling him that because of his color of his skin, he was inferior to other men. This filled him with a tremendous amount of anger. And so he tried to change the outside. And how did he do it? With anger. No different than what I just described to you when I was getting angry that somebody was not doing what I wanted them to do. I was like throwing a big tantrum. And I'm not saying that what I was fighting for would be justified. Sometimes as individuals, maybe they knew that they needed to start giving back. Maybe they were afraid to give. Maybe they were engaged in behaviors that went against them, right? It's not about that. It's ultimately about the place that he was coming from. He was trying to make a change on the outside through anger. Well, you follow the story or are familiar with it, you know that eventually the revolution, the anger, the protests resulted not only in the loss of many lives as part of the struggle, and certainly that was the path, but it also landed him in jail. Now, taking away from the ability to start trying to change on the outside, what was he left with? I can imagine Nelson Mandela locked up in a cell with nothing but him and his anger, and no one to direct it, and helpless to be able to change it outside of himself. Think of it as, at that moment, there must have been a realization inside of him at some level that all that anger, all those expectations, all that hurt, all that grief, all of that was inside of him. He saw it outside. He could see it outside of himself, and the poor people and the inequality and the unfairness and the abuse and all of that. But he must have come to terms with the fact that all of that lived inside of himself, and he was poisoning him. He was poisoning him. And the thing about anger is that being angry at someone or at yourself, it's ultimately like the old saying goes, drinking rat poison and expecting somebody else to die. And so he began little by little, by a long process. Imagine that 27, 28 years that he was in prison. He began slowly to speak, to communicate with this anger. And he began through the process of forgiveness, acceptance, compassion. He began to make peace, to begin to offer the compassion, the love to all those aspects of himself that had been hurt, that had been wounded. And little by little, he began to surrender it all, to let it go, until he began to find a sense of peace within himself. And eventually, out of that sense of peace, a new vision began to emerge, and he began to study. He began to prepare himself. He began to educate himself. He began to become a better man. He began to become the kind of a leader that he knew this historic moment was asking him to be. Not an angry one that would take his people into a war, but that one that who, like Gandhi, would initiate a path of compassion, forgiveness, of non-aggression. Ultimately, a path of peace, a path of what you and I would probably call a path of the heart. So he was able to make the transition during all those years, very, very, very slowly, from what I would call the prison of his own mind, his own repressed emotions, his anger, his expectations, and think of it as the angry animal in him that rightly so wanted a change, but could not really bring about the change from the same kind of consciousness or awareness or vibration that had created that. He needed to fight that battle inside his heart. He needed to come to terms with that aspect of himself, with his own aggression within himself. And healing that inside of him is what eventually then allowed him to emerge out of that prison triumphantly and be given what was exactly his by divine right, which was not only the presidency, but the leadership role that eventually led South Africa out of the struggle into the democracy that we all enjoy here today. A democracy which, as many of you know, is still in its infancy, still relatively new compared to many other places in the world, and is having obviously the growing pains of an adolescent, but nonetheless, I believe is on its journey of growing, maturing, and learning from past mistakes. Now, think of your situation then. Think in what ways are you being like Nelson Mandela? Think of what areas of your lives you're feeling resentful about. Whether it's angry towards yourself that you did or did not do something. Think of what area of your life you're feeling deeply dissatisfied, or perhaps you're living in fear. You're afraid that if you do something, somebody will judge you. You're afraid to speak your truth to someone in your life. You're afraid of asking for what you want. Or you feel ashamed as well. Shame is one of the emotions that oftentimes paralyzes us. And think of yourself as Mandela, and giving yourself the opportunity to be in that prison come back into that space where you can begin to take responsibility for these emotions that live inside of you, and begin to, through the power of your heart's compassion, love, appreciation, acceptance, and surrender all of that which is not love, all of that which has created discord in your life. Surrender your fears, your shame, your guilt, by beginning to bring acceptance, compassion, and love towards yourself, which is the essence of what self-love and self-care is about. Begin to cut yourself some slack and begin to bring to you the love and the appreciation that you're wanting to get from others on the outside, so that you can arrive then at ultimately what St. Francis of Assisi said when he began to speak in his prayer, that it is in giving that we receive, and begin to give yourself that love, that appreciation, the gift of compassion, attention, whatever it is that you think others are not giving you on the outside. And then, like Mandela, be open to the miracles that will begin to manifest in your life as a result of doing this, of moving from this prison of your heart to the liberating peace inside of your heart, that peace that surpasses all understanding. That's why the heart matters. The biggest battles that you will have in life, if you deal with them first inside your heart and win them there. And notice that I'm saying they will not be lost. I'll say they will be won in there. Because once the heart comes into the battle, once the heart gets engaged, it will always win. Always. Always. Speaking of the ancient Taoist traditions, one of the things that they believed and taught was that the three dantians, or intelligence centers that we have, right, which Rudolf Steiner referred to as the head, the heart, and the will. The Taoists believe that the heart was the emperor, whereas the king, or the head, was the king, and that the gut, our third intelligence network or system, was the samurai. So you have the king, the ruler, that rules by force and by decree, and then the emperor that rules with nobility, and then the samurai that rules by force and anger and fight. And so the idea behind this system, or this way of looking at life, was that ultimately the emperor, most powerful, will always win. Which brings us back to the beginning. The heart is the beginning at the end. It generates the largest electromagnetic field. So it will rule even the thoughts of your mind when it's fully energized and activated. It will determine the quality of your life, your relationships that you have, your level of connection, your level of health, your level of connection with others, and all of life. It holds the secret to your heart's desires. And it's really the battlefield, the true battlefield of your human experience. Ending with what Gandhi said, it's all about being the change that you want to see. The change that Mandela wanted to see out in the world needed to happen inside his heart before he could see it realized on the outside. So what is that change for you? Whatever it is that you're wanting to experience more in your life right now, what is that change for you? What is that change? And can you begin to start connecting with your heart and begin to start giving that which you're seeking on the outside? Begin by giving that to yourself. Begin to matter to your heart. That's why the heart matters. And that's why it should matter to you. All right. That's a mouthful, I said. Plenty, I think, to keep us thinking about some of these concepts and some of these ideas. Now, is there anybody that has any questions? Feel free to write them out, type them out in the Q&A. And if you feel, again, that you like to participate in the call, in the time that we have left, you can go ahead and raise your hand. And if not, well, I can begin to do then just guide us through a brief process to perhaps initiate that journey from the mind to the heart and begin to bridge the gap between both. So as we begin to as we begin the end as we begin the end of our transmission today of this broadcast, this first broadcast, I want to invite you to once again place a hand over your heart. And what we're going to do now is we're going to practice what is called the technique of coherence, bringing coherence or alignment between the energy or the frequency of the heart and the frequency of the brain. And we're going to do this by activating, through the use of our breath, our focus, the vibration of appreciation, which is the key to not only unlocking the heart, but beginning to create that vibrational shift. You're literally, the moment that you begin to feel appreciation about anything, the moment that the feeling tone, that the vibration of appreciation begins to get triggered within your own heart, in that moment, there is an energetic shift and the frequency of your heart changes to 0.1 hertz. That frequency change by itself begins to release or create a hormonal change within you that begins to immediately bring into greater harmony the electromagnetic or the brain waves of your brain with the electromagnetism of your heart. So this is how we go about it. We put a hand over our heart, just like we did at the very beginning, and we begin to breathe in and out of the heart once again. And as we do this, we begin to energize the heart. We begin to bring energy into the heart. And again, you want to breathe slowly, deeper, and begin to create a sense of a rhythm, a nice and even rhythm, so that the inhale and the exhale are approximately the same length. One of the things you can do is you can count inwardly. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, or 6, or whatever feels right to you. You want to find a count that feels right and is comfortable. And as you continue to breathe in and out of the heart, focusing on keeping the breath nice and long, slow, deep, and even, I want you to summon into your mind to think about something or someone that you deeply appreciate right now. Something you're grateful for. Perhaps it's a person in your life that believes in you. Or maybe somebody from the past that loved you unconditionally. Or perhaps it's just for the fact that you have a roof over your head. Or whatever it is, just think of that one thing that you're deeply grateful for as you continue to breathe in and out of the heart. Now notice that feeling of appreciation, and then notice where in your body you feel it. Notice what appreciation feels like in the body. You want to work with a memory that will evoke the feeling. So if for whatever reason, the memory, the thing you're thinking about does not activate that feeling, then choose something else until you find yourself feeling that feeling. For me, one of the things that always does it is I think about my little dog, Numi, when she was a puppy and I first picked her up. And immediately I just feel the sense of, of happiness and joy and deep sense of gratitude. So what is that for you? Continue to breathe it in and out of the heart. And as you do that, I want you to allow the following words to come into your heart. As I close our time together with a prayer. Your Father and Mother God, we love you, we honor you, we appreciate you, and we thank you for being here with us today, for being the presence of love, wisdom, and power within my heart. Thank you for this life. Thank you for this breath. Thank you for bringing me here today so that I could be reminded that within my heart, there's an intelligence, there's a love, there's a wisdom, and a power that is far bigger than I've been led to believe. That most of what I'm seeking outside of myself, joy, love, acceptance from the world, can be found right here in this sacred space within me, where I know you live, where I know those higher aspects of myself also lives. I give thanks for knowing that within me, there's the power and the intelligence to solve any problem that I have in my life, to heal any relationship that appears to be out of balance or in a state of disharmony. And that the journey begins the moment I begin to call forth or to summon within me the quality of whatever it is that I'm seeking on the outside. Knowing that if what I want is more abundance in my life, I can begin to activate the feeling of abundance in my heart, knowing that it is an infinitely abundant universe. And that my body is filled with an infinite number of cells, chemical processes that are unfolding at any given moment. And then within me, there's an inexhaustible source of love that lives within myself. That within me, there is a power to heal any emotional wound from the past, to restore whatever needs to be restored, to accept those aspects of myself that I've been struggling to accept and come to terms with. There is the power and the courage to release and let go of somebody who may have left my life that I'm still hanging on to. And there is the power to set myself free, just like Nelson Mandela did many years ago, when he chose to begin to give himself the love, the acceptance, and the sense of union that he was trying to make happen on the outside. For the ability that we all have to do this in the battlefield of our own hearts, which is where your true love, Father, Mother lives. We give thanks. For this feeling of love and appreciation I'm feeling within my heart, I give thanks, knowing that this feeling is always available to me, no matter what. And that this is the sacred place to which I can return back over and over again whenever I'm feeling alone, disconnected, unwanted, unloved, and isolated. That there's absolutely nothing that the power of the love within me cannot heal and make whole. That there is an infinite possibilities of miracles that are available to me the moment I begin to open to the wisdom that the present moment is delivering me in the intelligence, the love, the wisdom, and the power of my heart. For this, I give thanks. For this, I remain infinitely grateful. And I let this be. And so it is. I want to thank you very much for joining me in this first broadcast of Matters of the Heart. And once again, I'm really interested in hearing from you. After all, this space I'm creating is for you. So I'd love it if you write me with any questions that you'd like me to answer during this broadcast, letting me know what you would like it to be, what are some of the topics or themes that you'd like me to discuss, and I will do my best to fit it in. Until we connect again next week, I send you all of my love, and once again, I thank you very much for being here with me today. Remember that when it comes to the heart, there's not such a thing as mind over matters of the heart. But ultimately, the heart always wins. Have a wonderful day, and I look forward to connecting with you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.